Now that we know that in object-oriented programming, the main metaphor is objects that communicate by sending messages to one another, the question arises, how do we even create such objects in the first place? There are essentially two ways for doing that. The first is you create an object by copying and adjusting an existing one. And the second way to do that is by instantiating a template. Now, Java follows the second approach, and this is exactly where classes come in. A class is simply a template or a blueprint for creating objects. The class specifies which attributes and which methods the objects will have. When we create objects according to such a template, we call them instances of that class. Here's an example. Here are 3 instances of class rectangle. They all have a size and a color attribute, but the actual values of these attributes differ across these 3 instances. It's very common to describe classes in this form as rectangles with 3 sub-rectangles. And this is in fact a standard modeling tool that's called the UML Class Diagram. So whenever you're looking at a box like this with 3 boxes, it's a UML class diagram representing the class. The 3 components are, in the first one, we see the identifier or name of the class. And in the case of Java, this has to be a valid identifier. The second box lists all attributes that objects of this class will have, with some modifiers and also their type. And the third box lists all methods that will be present in objects of this class. Now, in order to create an object in Java, you need to do 2 things. You need to define a class, and then secondly, you want to instantiate an object of that class. Let me show you how to do these 2 things. In fact, we have seen this before in all examples that I've shown you so far. You are using the keyword class, followed by an identifier, and remember that the convention is that class names are capitalized. What follows is a block of code, in this case all the way from line 1 down to line 10. All of this is the definition of the class. Now, what do we have? We can have attributes, and these are just variables declared in that namespace of the class. And you can have methods that we've seen before. How do we instantiate an object? For this, you need to know that every class defines a type. The name of the type is exactly the name of the class. And so variables can be declared in the usual fashion like this. You use the name of the type followed by the name of the identifier for the new variable. In this case, we are declaring a variable called lowercase r of type rectangle, which is the class that we have just defined. Now, in order to create an object, we are using the keyword new followed by the name of the class that you want to instantiate, followed by a list of parameters in brackets, and in this case, the list is empty.